In this video, we save some money using a door sensor, a Sensibo aircon controller, and Home Assistant. I am here in the guest cottage, which is where we rent it out, but we also have friends visiting. They'll usually stay in here. So it's kind of a nice, secluded, separate space from the main house. However, what happens when it's someone else's? Sometimes you don't think as much as if you're at home. So what happens here a lot is that, well, people leave the door open, they leave the aircon on, especially in summer, or they'll leave it on in winter heating and still have the door open. Yeah, I know, we think, well, why would you do that? It happens all the time. So with the power of Home Assistant and automation, I'm gonna fix that. Wow! Now, I'm using Home Assistant for quite a few things, and majority of the things that I've done, almost all of them, has to do with saving money or saving time or both, right? That's sort of the reason for doing it. It's not just because, oh, it would be fun. It's also fun, but the main reason is I'll save time and money. And it's no different here. So I've automated the board tank, which I've made a video on earlier, and the water tanks on how to manage the level of them and fill them up automatically, etc. I'm using motion sensors to turn off heaters in my office if I forget, those sort of things, right? So that we can save some money. And I thought, hey, what? We can fix this issue. I'm looking over there because the aircon's over there, but you'll see it in a minute. I'm gonna put a door sensor, and I'll show you what it is, on this door, so I know whether it's open or closed. And then I'm gonna use this Sensibo aircon. It's can make any air conditioner or heat pump smart controller, which also integrates with Home Assistant. And then I'll go, well, if the door's open for too long, turn off the aircon. I know, it's good. And Home Assistant is just the ultimate tool for doing those things, because I can make this Aqara unit work with this Sensibo unit, which otherwise don't know about each other, right? So that's why I use Home Assistant. All right, first up, let's just have a look on what these things are, and then I'll install them, and then we'll set it all up in Home Assistant. All right, so here's the two units. We're going to start with the door and window sensor, because it's pretty simple, really. There's not much to it. So I'll just take it out here, and literally all you get is that. So that's a passive unit. That's just a magnet, really, that you put on the door. And then you have the active unit, which is this one, which has a little battery in it. You can change the battery. You can take that apart there. If I was focused, there we go. Take that apart there, and you put a battery in it, and that goes just above the door, so that these two will connect. That sits there, that sits on the door. As you close the door, and the contacts, and that means the door's closed. Now it's open. Pretty simple, but it all comes into Home Assistant, and I can then see if it's open or closed. And the other part of it is this Sensibo, which is a very neat unit. I already have one down in the house, in our main house. If I can open it, knife required. Open that, and then we can slide it out, I suspect. There we go. All right. And in here we have the actual Sensibo unit itself. Say hello to your smart sensing AC. And there's the unit. So it's not that big either. It's roughly the size of my palm. You get in white or grey. I chose white because the walls are white in here, or sort of white. And that's it. And it's really easy to set up, and I'll show you how to do it. It's super simple. You just do it in the app. And that's it. I'm going to put that on the wall. Has a micro USB port there, and I'm not even sure with that. I think you can add accessories to that, if you can see that. There's another plug there, and there's micro USB. And here, the rest of it is the power. So there's a little power point here, and here's the micro USB cable that we're going to put in. So we're going to install that, both of them, and then we're going to set it all up in Home Assistant. Yay! Oh, focus fingers. There we go. Better fingers. Yay! Now let me just show you what we're doing. So there's the aircon on the wall there. There it is, as you can see, air conditioning. And the door for entry is over here. So we're going to put the door sensor up about here. It has about a 30mm gap sensor will still register as closed, so that should be okay there. And then the Sensibo is going to sit just up here, right up there, as far out of reach as possible, just so people won't fiddle with it, hopefully. And the wire's going to come down through the ceiling there. And the ceiling, or the attic, is up here, up in the lovely attic space that we all love. So here we go, up here. And it's going to be over there, roughly thereabouts. And there'll be power there. And then we can power it and put the cord down through the ceiling and just power it right up at the top there. And then after that, we'll integrate it all in Home Assistant. What I might do first is adopt the Sensibo into my app so I know it works and I can do it sort of in relative comfort here. So I'll show you how. All right, so I've started up the Sensibo app and I'm just going to plug in a new device. Go. And there's a little blue light there, just flashing, you can see. All right, so in the Sensibo app, Sensibo, I don't know if it's Sensibo or Sensibo. I'm going to say Sensibo. I'm going to go to Add New Device. It says Sensibo Sky. There's a few different products, obviously. And I'm going to go Connect your Sensibo. Yes, I have connected it to the power outlet. It's blinking. Find the QR code located at the back of your Sky device. Yep, got that. Next. Right, we'll scan that. There we go. That was quick. Please choose a location. It's going to be my current residence here. Going to add a new room. We're going to call this Guest Cottage because that's what it is. Yep, perfect. Choose an icon. Ooh. Let's choose the bedroom thing there. That'll do. I don't think it matters. Go next. Yep, you can. Please allow the app to connect to the Sensibo network when asked. Yep, sure thing. So this obviously has its own network that it transmits or broadcasts. Yes, I'm going to connect to the Sensibo thing. Searching for nearby Wi-Fi networks. Connect to that. So what this is now doing is it's letting this use the IoT network, Wi-Fi network, through the setup process. Updating firmware. There we go. Set up remote. So the remote is the aircon remote. You can tell this is quite an old unit. It'll be there, the old unit. So the remote is not new or anything. I'm guessing this is probably 25 years old, 20 years old, something like that. But it should work. So Sensibo needs to synchronize with your remote control. Please get your AC remote. Whoop, click next. Point your air conditioner's remote at the device front face and push the power button. All right, so start stop is the power button. So we're going to point it here and once signal received, remote detected successfully. That's it. I pressed it once. That's all I did, right? And done. And now you're all set. So let's get started. So now I have two Sensibos, right? It even has a temperature sensor. So it says 26 in here. It's warm. It's summer here. It's getting warm in here. So now let's see if I point this. The aircon's just behind the camera there. I'm going to point over the wall and let's see if I can turn it on. Could you hear that? Straight away it turned on. And what I can do now as well through the app, now we're going to use Home Assistant in a minute, but let me just show you the app here. I can have a target temperature, so I can set that. Did you hear the beep? And then all goes through to the aircon. I just pressed start on the remote and it knows everything. And I'm blown away, it's fantastic. I can set the mode, so I can set heat, fan, dry, etc. I can set the fan on this, quiet, low, medium, high, auto. And you'll see I can do all of this through Home Assistant as well. I don't need the app at all. It's really, really neat. And same with the swing on the louvers, which are on the aircon on which way the air blows. Alright, so we installed the door sensor and the air conditioning controller from Sensibo, and now it's time to see what we can do with them in Home Assistant, which is going to be automation, of course. But first, let's have a look at the units themselves and what the devices are that you get in Home Assistant. So what are the entities that we can work with? I usually go to integrations to find these. If I know what integration it's using, I can then go to the 43 devices here on my Zigbee network. And in here we have the guest cottage door sensor, and you can see here it's been opened and closed a bunch of times as I tested it. And I'm using the Zigbee Aqara door and window sensor, and I'm using Zigbee because I already got a big Zigbee network. And if you don't know much about Zigbee or you want to find out how to use it, I did make another video just all about Zigbee and how the various devices I use and the Conbi 2 Zigbee hub. So go check that out if you want to know more about Zigbee. Super easy to set up this one. It basically just appeared. So that's not that interesting. What is more interesting is if we go back and we find these Sensibo devices. There's two now. One is going to be the media room, and then the new one, which is the guest cottage. So that's the Sensibo Sky unit. And from that I get a whole bunch of information and features that I can use inside Home Assistant. Sensibo has actually made a really good job of integrating the API or making the API available for others to integrate with, such as Home Assistant. So we can see now I have currently 25 degrees in the guest cottage, so I get temperature. I didn't have that before, so that's useful. I can have an off point, so that's it cools to this point or heats to this point and then turns off. I can control the louvers, the swing of those. I can put timers on it. I even set a reminder for the filter or keep track of the filter cleaning. We do that about once a month, so it's really important to keep track of that for health reasons. But there's even more. If I click on the actual guest cottage control here, I get all the settings for that, and I can actually control the unit from here: heat, cool, heat or cool, dry, fan only, etc. So I can connect. I can do that. I mean, that's what we're going to do in the automation, right? We're going to use these features. I can set the fan mode, and I can set the swing mode, in which on this particular unit only has one setting, but there might be more. And you can see the history settings related, etc. for it. So the history of the temperature, settings. So we could change the icon if we wanted, etc. The usual Home Assistant stuff, but yeah, we get a bunch of features for that particular entity of that device. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So the first thing I want to do is I want to add this Sensibo device or entity to my dashboard, because I have all of my heating controls on here, all my temperatures and heating controls. So I did a video on the Nobo heaters, which are the ones that are not available because I turned them off because it's summer. There's a little interesting quirk with those, so I turn them off to not. Yeah, anyway, that's another matter. But if you want to know about Nobo heaters, I made a video for that. I'm going to add it to this dashboard, the Sensibo heater or controller. So I'm going to add a card, and this is the thermostat card, which is down here, that I use for that. Because that gives me controls. It already knows I want to use the guest cottage because it's the only one that's left that doesn't have a card, and I'll save that. So that gives me this card here, just like the media room up here. I now have the guest cottage, and I can then control, the target temperature. I can turn it on with heating, cooling, etc. I can turn it off, all of what we just saw before. So I just wanted to add that there. I might rearrange this whole dashboard because now I have even more temperature sensors and move them into areas or something. So there's a lot of options for managing your dashboards, but that's another video entirely. So that's done. And then of course the whole idea of Home Assistant is to make an automation. I know, exactly. So let's do that. I use Node-RED for that. If you haven't used Node-RED before, it's a very visual way of looking at your automation flows. I made a whole video on that, of course, so go check that out if you want to know more about Node-RED and how to set it up, how to start using it. So in here, I'm going to create a new card or a new tab, because this is the first automation I have for the guest cottage. I might change this later on to be an HVAC card or something. I keep changing my descriptions as things grow and evolve so that they make sense. They're never sort of static. Okay, So now the first thing I want to do is figure out if the door is open or closed. So I'll take this current state card, double click on it, and I'm going to call this cottage door open closed. And the entity ID, I can just start typing the name of it. I don't need to know the actual ID because Node-RED will find that for me. So if I type cottage, there it is. Guest cottage door sensor is the friendly name. The actual ID is this, sensor open close 44. But I don't remember those things. And then I say if the state is on. So I know that this sensor sends an on message if it's open. Yeah, not open, but on. So if the door's open, the sensor's on, right? And then I want then this is where this is the convenient part of this card is that I can say for 15 minutes. So I don't want the aircon to just switch off if they open the door. If the guests that are next door, because it's the office is here, the next door, then I don't want them to just turn the aircon off. It's if they leave the door open. I think 15 minutes, that sounds about right. If you leave the door open for 15 minutes or more, I'm going to turn off the aircon to save power and be kind to the environment. And that's it. That's all I need to do in this card. So now this will have two outputs, a true and a false. So the true is if it's open for more than 15 minutes. So that's the one we want to use. And what do we want to do? We want to call a service, which is turn off the aircon, right? So in here, I'll call this turn off aircon. And the domain of this is climate. That's the Home Assistant domain of these units. And the service, you can see now we have the same services as we saw on the card. We can set various things, or we can turn it on or off. I'm going to turn it off. I only want to turn it off. And the device, well, there are only going to be two, because we only have two that are in that climate device domain category. And this is going to be the guest cottage. That's it. That's all I have to do. So click done. Obviously, I need to connect them. So say the true state goes to here. The last thing that I need to do is that this card here, the current state card, doesn't get triggered automatically. It's just a way of you can lead into something, check the state, and then figure out if you want to do one thing or another. It doesn't get triggered automatically, so I need to set a trigger. And I usually use this inject node here. There are other ways of doing it. I like the inject node because I can, well, for two reasons. I can send any sort of payload I want in. You know, in this case it's timestamp, but I could send a whole JSON string if I wanted. But I'm going to do just a standard timestamp. I don't really care what. I just needed to trigger it, right? So with this, I use the interval, which is every 1 second, probably not. Every 1 minute, I want to check. So every minute it's going to check. So that's the one. We're just going to go in here. Trigger every 1 minute. And then there's another really cool thing. Oh, let me just move this, and then we can connect them. And then the last really cool thing about this particular inject card or inject node here is that you can click this thing on the left of it here, and it'll trigger it manually. So if you were testing an integration, you can trigger it when you want to. You don't have to sit and wait every minute. So that's kind of cool. But that's all we have to do, apart from click and deploy. I now have an automation that will check if the door is open for more than 15 minutes and will turn off the aircon. Just a note on this, because costs are often important. If you were to do this, the Aqara sensor, which is that one, cost about $20, $25 Australian, maybe 30, depends a little bit, prices go up and down a bit. Not expensive, very simple, quite a neat device. I've never had any issues with it, they just work. And then there's the Sensibo, which is more expensive. I paid about $120 Australian for it on special. They can be about $150 as well, so it's much more expensive. But I think it's worth it. And I reckon that the $150 odd I paid for these two, I can make that up in about a year or a year and a half, just from that door being closed, open or closed, and turn off the aircon, I reckon. But that's a bit of a, I'm just guesstimating. But check them out, Sensibo. I'm not paid by Sensibo. I'm not sponsored by them. I just think it's a fantastic device, and I really like it. I've got two of them now. That's it. If you have any other ways of using this, Sensibo and a door sensor or something else, let me know in the comments. I do reply to all comments because I'd love to hear your opinion and learn from it. And, of course, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, if you like the content. There's a lot more of these videos coming, and a lot more on the channel already, so go check them all out if you are into Home Assistant, networking, Lego, or anything else techie. But other than that, I think I might go and do some more technology stuff. Yeah. Alright. See you. Bye.